Hello everyone, it's your boy, NoukonNeko, your perfect virtual feline friend, purveyor of good vibes. So today, we're here in Baldur 3 to build a certain character from Honkai Star Rail. Almost at their impact there, but yeah, so the character that I wanted to try to build today is Kafka. So yeah, I normally don't do build videos, but this has been something I've been kind of thinking about for a really long time. And I really do enjoy kind of like theory crafting and trying to get characters from games or animes into like a D&D type of character, right? Which Baldur 3 is pretty much is like a D&D 5e game. So this build not only works for Baldur 3, but it would probably work for D&D as well. But at the same time, since Baldur 3 is kind of hot right now, this is probably the build that people are more curious about. Yeah, like when I was like thinking on making like a Kafka build, and I looked out there and to see what people thought it would be like, I didn't really see much about it. So that's why I decided to do a video on this. So yeah, so here's my build pretty much. And I'm going to kind of walk through and talk about how to actually build up this character. But Kafka's main selling point is the fact that when she talks, she's really good at talking. She is like literally really high in deception, intimidation, performance, and persuasion. Pretty much any dialogue options she's going to be really good at, right? But even though she's really strong at that, she's still able to kind of hold her own on her fight. Based on the classes I picked for her. If you can't already tell, she's a Bardlock, which means she's going to be part Bard and part Warlock. And I'll explain why when we kind of build her up. So let's go ahead and reset my character.
Fate, dost thou require a new app as the...
Here we go. And here, this is where you can respec to any character, but yeah, for a Kafka build, the character you want to start or class you want to start out with first would be a Bard. Oh, another thing I kind of mentioned before we even go to classes is you probably need to think about like races and background too, right? Obviously, I already made this character as a human because pretty sure Kafka is a human. But for her background, I think she could either be a charlatan or a criminal. I think either one is fine, whatever one you pick. I guess if you are going to do something else than a Bardlock, some people are thinking more like a Bard Rogue sometimes, right? But I kind of feel like Kafka is the type of character that isn't really sneaky as much, so I don't think the Bard Rogue is definitely correct. She's more of upfront and in your face and gonna take you out. Like, she's not going to be the sneaky type. So that's why I think the Bardlock is a little more accurate. And because of that, that's why I think Charlatan is going to be more makes more sense than it is to be a criminal. So the difference really is they both are really good at deception. They get proficiency in deception. But for Charlatan, they're going to have sleight of hand, which is going to be good for lockpicking or pickpocketing. While the other one, criminal, is more better for stealth. So that's the really difference. Either one's good, but I just stick with the Charlatan for now. Okay, so now going back to the class, the reason why we wanted to go for Bard first is Kafka. She has like two things she uses, right? Two weapons. She uses two SMGs and a katana. So the reason why I would go with Bard first is because it will give you proficiency with hand crossbows, which you kind of think, you know, if you have dual SMGs, then a dual hand crossbow is probably the closest thing you can get in Baldur 3. So that's where you want to grab this, because if you do the Warlock first, then do Bard, you don't get these proficiency. So that's why you want to go Bard first, then Warlock. Okay, so let's go ahead and grab the Bard. And in terms to her cantrips, thematically, again, Kafka is kind of really a persuasive person. Her special skill, I think it's called Spirit Whisper, kind of influenced the person that she talks to. Pretty much she has control over the person. Like, this is still kind of a little shrouded in mystery how it works, but she has some mind controlling type of skill or power just by talking to them. So this is where I'm going to use a lot of her, like, kind of base a lot of her spells and abilities on when it comes to spells. So Vicious Mockery is, obviously something using your voice to kind of give them disadvantage. So that's why I think that's a good run that will represent that. And I think the other one is Friends, where whenever you kind of try to probably talk to a non-hostile enemy, this could probably give you, a second dice for your dialogue options. So this is probably the closest thing to Kafka compared to everything else that is available here. So let's go ahead and grab these. And then for spells, even though this is also kind of vocal right here, hideous laughter, I don't really see Kafka kind of doing jokes that much, so I'm going to say no to that. She's kind of more of like an anti-hero than a hero, so I'll say no to heroism as well, though she kind of is as strong and powerful as a hero. But for now, this also gives her more other options for concentration skills, so spells. So let's go ahead and take that out. Dissonant Whispers. I think this is probably one of the closest to her Spirit Whisper, right? I mean, their name is almost the same. So we'll go ahead and keep that. And for the other spells, I would go ahead and grab... I do think Charm Person is really good too. But I'm gonna grab some Bard unique spells first, since I'm gonna be going heavily into Warlock right after this. So I'm gonna grab Thunderweave because we do know that Kafka, she's kind of a lightning user. She does like electro damage, right? So when I think about those type of skills, I think lightning and thunder are kind of coming hand to hand. So and this, not only that, this skill is actually a really good skill. Like, it pretty much gives you a really powerful AoE push, and AoE push in this game is really powerful when you're pushing them off a cliff or into a hole, which can one-hit KO them. So really good skill to pick up. So I'll go ahead and grab that. And then the other one I think is probably good to grab is Speak with Animals. I think since we have a character that's going to be really dialogue heavy, kind of talking to everybody, talk to animals is probably a good idea too. And I think there are some parts of Honkai where she is also kind of controlling some monsters. So that could kind of lean force to that. So let's go with that. And then I think Healing Words is always a good healing skill. It's, also again a vocal thing. And I think this all kind of plays well into Kafka's kind of abilities. Okay, and then of course at the very beginning of Honkai, we see Kafka playing a violin. So this is a very obvious pick right here. Stats is kind of difficult for a lot of people, right? But she's obviously gonna want to max out dexterity. So these default stats, you want to kind of move around a little bit. Let's go ahead and move this into dexterity. And you don't want her to be too fragile, so we're gonna move that intelligence into constitution. So these stats into intelligence, I think you could either go into wisdom or intelligence, up to you. But I feel like she kind of is more of an intelligent person than a wise person. So I said I kind of keep with this. And another thing you could also do is early on in the game, having 16 and 2 into here, have more even numbers, would be better early on. But later on, the reason I'm going to have this, I'll explain a bit later, is you can eventually get additional 1 point to charisma and get to 18, which will be really big. But okay, So this is probably the stats I would say is best for her. You're trying to get as close to her as possible. So move on. Again, I don't think she's a stealthy person, so I would probably not give her proficiency in stealth. But she's going to be more focused on all the dialogue options. So I'm going to go ahead and take intimidation and performance. But we still have one more thing you could pick. I do think she is a really acrobatic person. You know, we saw that one trailer. She's moving all over the place, taking people down with her SMGs. So I think she is kind of acrobatic. Yeah, you can kind of play around with that. I do think like since she's such a knowledgeable person, right? She knows like a lot of like what the aeons and things that happened back in the past. I do think that history, religion isn't bad either. Even maybe in Arcana, but just to play in the strengths of this character who has really high charisma, I just stick with intimidation performance and with the high dexterity acrobatics. Okay, so now that we have the first level, let's go ahead and move on to level 2. So here we're not gonna go to Bard level 2. This is where we start pivoting into a Warlock. So the reason why I picked Bard was to be able to get the hand crossbows to kind of emulate how she's using SMGs. The Warlock is going to emulate how she is really skillful with her katana, her bladed weapon, her sword, right? And you will see why as I go down this route. So let's go ahead and grab this. And for your choice of cantrip, I feel like almost everything else isn't going to be better than the defaults to kind of give you. I think Eldritch Blast isn't a lightning or a thunder damage type move, but it does kind of make me think of those things, right? Lightning and thunder still, especially with that kind of like art they have. So, and at the same time, it's one of the Warlock's best cantrips, so it's kind of hard to kind of pass this off. So I'm going to go ahead, even though it might be a stretch, and said that she could kind of do this. So let's go ahead and grab these. So one thing I spent a long time thinking about is which patron she should go with as her first level Warlock. And I feel like the Fiend is kind of more like as if you're worshipping that nuke, you know, the Eon of Destruction, which she's kind of against, right? The whole point of what she's doing in Honkai is to help your main character get strong enough to kind of beat and fight against Nanook, right? So probably not this. So it's down to either the old great one or the great old one or the Archfey. So Archfey is more about like charming, which Kafka's a pretty charming character, right? But I don't think that's kind of her ability. I think it makes more sense to kind of go with this, even though she already has the whisper and this laughter from the Bard skill. You could still grab different skills instead of these. And yeah, when she kind of kills a lot of people or kills a person with a crit hit, they scare everybody in the room. I can see that happening. That's kind of what happens in the trailer, right? But not only that, lore-wise, this actually makes more sense because Kafka kind of follows Ilios, right? Ilios is somebody who is able to see the future, and they're all working towards the best future, right? And the great old one, if you could tell, right? They're working towards a inscrutable goals, which is, you can't really tell what that kind of goal is, right? It's kind of hard to comprehend, but they're working towards it. So it kind of fits lore-wise as well to kind of pick this one. So let's go ahead and grab this. Yeah, I think ability-wise, Archfey and the Great One could work, but lore-wise, I think the Great One's the way to go. Okay, so we already have this skill from the Bard, so we're not going to grab that. And I already said that Kafka isn't the type to kind of crack jokes, so let's go with other things. So what's better than those, right? So again, since Kafka is a lightning user, I think the Witch Bolt is the way to go, right? So if enemies are weak against lightning, this would be a good skill. I think the other one I would pick and would be Charm Person. So this is where I mentioned you can grab this from Bard, right? But the other skills I picked from Bard, you cannot grab it here from the Warlock. So I grabbed the other stuff on the Warlock, on the Bard, in the Bard side, and grabbed these from the Warlock because the Warlock has it. Okay, so yeah, with these, you know, with the way she's very good with words and her lightning damage, we'll move on to the next section. That's level 2. Okay, now we're on level 3 and level 2 Warlock. Yeah, and by the way, I can only go up to level 9 because that's how far my level character can go, but I think the rest of the way from 9 to 12, which is the max level, isn't hard to figure out at that point. But yeah, we'll get there. Let's see. So we're at level 2. You can pick another spell. And at this point, thematically, I don't think any of these really kind of go towards Kafka, but to kind of make yourself as a more durable Warlock, I do think getting the armor of Agathis? Don't know how to pronounce it right, but this will make you a little bit more durable. So let's go ahead and grab that. And here you get to kind of buff some interesting, some of your skills a little bit, right? This will buff up your Eldritch Blast, which I do think is good. And this would do it too. So one will buff up the damage, and the other one will buff up or give it ability to push. Both really good, and you can turn it on and off. But let's go ahead and kind of talk about the other ones. So Mage Armor is also a good option, right? Say if you didn't want to do more damage or push. Say if you are the type that don't want her to wear armor at all, where her like just have her like wear normal clothes, then this would be a good option. But I mean, wearing armor, like this one right now is medium armor, isn't so bad aesthetically. So I think it's better to kind of grab these and wear armor, and you would have just a tanky of a character wearing a medium armor for the character. So I don't think this beast speech is worth it because these skills are just way better. This one you already have proficiency in deception and persuasion, so that's not going to really do much. More sight. Yeah, there's nothing in Kafka's lore saying that she's really good at seeing in the dark. Because we already have that armor, this doesn't really stack, so she's not really a disguisey kind of character. She's not the kind of type to cloak either in the shadows. And not the type to really, this doesn't really do anything about Kafka's lore. So yeah, that's why I'm just going to go with things that buff Eldritch Blast, which is really great. Okay, don't need to replace spells. Move on to the next level. Okay, so here is where things get interesting. Level 3 Warlock. Here, you get access to level 2 skills. And I think the one that most fits Kafka at this point is the Crown of Madness. So when you fight Kafka, she would do things to your party where your party will end up kind of attacking each other. And Crown of Madness is pretty much does that. So compared to everything else, Yeah, that's the one that makes the most sense. So we'll go ahead and grab that. And then for the pact. The pact, she doesn't really have pets, so I would not say the chain's the way to go. And she's not much of a mage user, right? She mainly is a forceful person, physical person using swords and SMGs. So I would say Blade's the one to go. And this is where you would get most of your sword skills from. So what's nice about the Blade of the Pact is this pretty much lets her use any melee weapon in the game, right? Most, like say a longsword, which mainly scales with strength, you could make a pack with that longsword and now it uses your charisma instead of strength. Same thing with dex. Even though she has high enough dex, your charisma is still going to be higher, so you're going to want everything to scale with charisma. Charisma. So anything. Great sword, longsword, rapier. Your choice. It's great. Okay. We're down to 4. Yeah, we're still going to keep going on the world path. And this is where we're going to get another cantrip. This is not going to matter so much, but I'm just going to grab True Strike for now because Kafka isn't only about, being able to talk well and beat things up pretty well, but she also kind of buffs her ally, right? She has Blade, which she is using her kind of spell or skill on, ability, to kind of make him strong and not kind of die to a certain illness, or not really die, but succumb to a certain illness. But anyways, we'll just grab that for now. Has a really decent buff. And then for spells, this is where things get a little bit tough because again, there's a lot of skills that doesn't really add to her lore that much. But you could say since her ult does a huge amount of lightning damage to all the enemies, you could kind of make an argument that thunder damage to all like a group of enemies could kind of work. So you can grab that. Yeah, you can also say that she might be a little bit nimble and have that too, but this probably would make a little more sense, at least combat wise. All right, so let's go ahead and grab that. And since it's level 4, we get a feat. This is where things get interesting, right? So the reason why I mentioned having her charisma at 17 is when you get actor, get 1 additional charisma, which puts you at 18, give you another, +1 to charisma when you do any ability throws. And not only that, you get more proficiency for deception and performance. So that's why when you look at my deception performance, it was really high, just because of this. Really good if this is the character you're mainly going to use for a lot of dialogues. Let's go ahead and grab this. Oh, before I even grab this, if you have your charisma at 16 instead of 17, you could do ability improvement. That could work too, right? But you just lose that proficiency for deception and performance. Another thing that's kind of debating on is whether she wants crossbow expert. That makes it so that when she shoots her hand crossbows up close, that she doesn't gain a disadvantage. And she also can do keeping wounds for twice as long, but I think that's okay. This is usually important for characters that mainly focuses on range and might be in like close range situations sometimes. But I feel like because she has a sword, she doesn't need this as much. But yeah, that's why I'm going to go with actor. Right? Moving forward. Okay, we're now at Warlock level 5. And what do we have? So here we have access to level 3 spells. And this is where I kind of think Again, we're gonna go with her whole enchantment type of thing where she's able to kind of manipulate enemies. We use hypnotic pattern for that, right? Where they cannot attack you or move or act. So really good if they're around and sees this that they can't really do anything. We're gonna go with that. And we did see slow earlier, and I do think slow is not bad, but you can get it from here as her invocation. You can also grab one of the other things down here that you saw that might be interesting for you, but yeah, up here, these two is probably what you want to pick because these are introduced at this level. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab this because I don't think she's the type to curse. Right? She's also kind of quick in some of her videos, so you could almost say that if they're slow, that's the reason why she's quicker than them. Okay. This is where things get a little bit interesting, right? So the reason why we're at level 5 for Warlock in the first place is so that she gains an extra attack for her blade weapon, right? So after hitting level 5, that's a very big threshold. It's questionable where you want to go start working on Bard and eventually get that to level 6 again, another extra attack, which can stack with the Warlock's extra attack. But 6 levels in Bard is a long way, and you do get something good by going to a level 6 Warlock, and you get a reaction called Entropy Ward. This is where if somebody tries to attack you, you can impose a disadvantage on them, so they will most likely miss. And in return, if they do miss, you gain advantage on them. So this is kind of where I do think her kind of way to kind of beat enemies effortlessly kind of comes to play. So I do think it's better to kind of go with one more level to Warlock before we pivot back to Bard. So we're gonna go with this. And for our spell, we have the same spells, level 3 spells we could pick before. I decided nothing's kind of good thematically at this point. Just go with another kind of reaction spell that can counter spell, because I imagine that being kind of useful. Yeah, this is probably a better reaction against spells versus the other one that's probably better against just a normal attack. So that kind of covers our bases. Okay. So now that we're done with Warlock, and I feel like this is a good point in time to pivot to Bard. So we're gonna go back to Bard. And we already have a lot of these skills, right? We already have Charm. I think at this point, Animal Friendship is not a bad thing. It's an okay skill because it just makes it so certain animals won't attack you. It doesn't. I don't think it really helps your allies, but thematically it could kind of work. But she did have monsters that she managed to get to kind of work with her, right, and didn't really attack her. So you can go with that, or you could try to go with Featherfall, because I think she leaped off the building, which I imagine she has a way to kind of land, right? So this is up to you. And then I guess Fairy Fire is a good skill. You could go with that one. But anyways, let's just go with this for now. Because level 3 bar is where things get more interesting. Yeah, so this is where you have to make a big choice after you grab a spell. Let's go ahead and get where I have Crown of Madness. I'm gonna go with Enhanced Ability, just for the sake of, again, she's gonna be enhancing her allies too, like the way she kind of helps with Blade. And I imagine this is probably really good to have. And since it's a kind of a Bard unique skill, so let's go ahead and go with that. here things get interesting, right? You have a choice of subclass, kind of, and you either go with lore, valor, or swords. Valor has a little bit more defensive options and better inspiration, which I really don't think really fits Kafka so well. So I think it's down to either lore or College of Swords, but I do feel like, yeah, cutting words might work out. She already has proficiency with main these, so that's kind of a waste. But here is where she gets most of her sword skills from, and she would get extra attack down the road when she has level 6 if she follows this route. So this is where I think it's better to go with. And she gets medium armor, so yeah, she was able to equip light armor only before, but now with medium armor she should have more AC, and you would do more like sword type of skills. And here you have a choice between a fighting style. I initially thought the 2-weapon fighting might be good if it boosts up her hand crossbow damage. But technically your hand crossbow offhand already gains proficiency already, or gains the ability modifier. Like if you had like 2 daggers, your offhand would not get the ability modifier, and having this would give it to you. But she's not really a person that holds 2 melee weapons, so we'll go with dueling. If you use a longsword, it's not going to matter much, or if you great weapon, but if you use a rapier instead, then this will give you extra 2 damage and make it equal to using a longsword, really. But it's better than picking this. So what's nice here is you also gain expertise, and this is where I went with intimidation and persuasion. We already got like the double points you can't tell from here for deception and performance, but now we're going to get the double points in intimidation and persuasion. So let's go with that. And that's kind of where I end up, right, with my character. And again, if you go back to proficiencies, they're all at 12. So yeah, she's going to be really good at dialogue in this game. She gets the entry reward, and if they happen to have doing a spell instead, then you have a counter spell. Pretty good reactions. Yeah, you can see even without the dual-handed, not dual-handed, but dual weapon mastery, where you hold 2 weapons, you still see the extra like +3, or +3, right? +3? Might be easier to see with the normal hand crossbow. Yeah, the extra +3 right there, right? Versus if you put 2 daggers, well, this one has the +3, this one doesn't. So yeah, you really don't need it. Okay, let's go ahead and equip the greatsword. So yeah, with your choice of any melee weapon, because you're a blade warlock, you either go with the greatsword, a longsword, or a rapier. Like anything you think anything that's better at the time, pretty much. And yeah, I think that's mostly it for this build. So this build is interesting because you could do like an Eldritch Blast, and then you could also follow it up with the offhand crossbow attack. Same thing with melee. You could literally start with the offhand crossbow attack, then do double melee. If you get the extra attack from Bard, then that's triple melee. Yeah, so there's a lot of things you can kind of mix up together with this. But yeah, I guess at this point at 9, anything beyond, right? the spells is pretty much up to you at that point. It's really hard to say what's kind of better pick for it. But I think it's kind of obvious at this point if there's anything that's lightning related or enchanting related, voice related. That's probably what you want to go for, right? But the whole point is to get the Bard 6 to get the extra attack. All right. So yeah, this is my Kafka build, and yeah, I spent a lot of time talking to other like D&D players who's like really expertise in D&D about this, and I talked to a lot of like Honkai players who's like knowledgeable about Kafka and stuff. So just by combining together, this is just what I came up with. And if you guys enjoyed this video and would like me to kind of do builds for characters for Genshin or Honkai or any other character in certain animes or stuff to kind of make for D&D or Baldur's Gate 3, let me know in the comments. And I'll kind of see which one's the most interesting for me to build. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this, and I guess I'll see you guys next time on stream. You guys have a good day. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.